Marks President Jacob Zuma's deadline to provide reasons for his sacking of former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and his deputy Mcebisi Jonas. Last week, Judge Bashier Vally ruled in favour of the Democratic Alliance for the President to provide all documents and electronic records, including correspondence, reports, contracts, memoranda, evaluations, advice received, as well as recommendations that related to making the decisions. Now, President Jacob Zuma had allegedly relied on an intelligence report in the March reshuffle. The DA made their submissions at the North Gauteng High Court last Thursday. Professor Booysen is here in studio with us. She's a political analyst at Wits University to give us insight into these political events and what has suddenly happened, because there's a whole twist to the story now. It's saying that Zuma is now saying that the DA must produce the so-called intelligence report which he allegedly used. Please explain to me what's going on. I don't know if I'm the only South African confused, but I got a feeling I'm not. What's happened?
Yes, that's one of the reasons Zuma's legal counsel are offering as to why there should be leave to appeal the decision. It all concerns basically the right to review executive decisions. That right has been standing in South African law since the mid-1990s. So there is a right to review that. The president has been actually getting away with a lot over the years, where everybody has blindly assumed he has the prerogative to appoint his cabinet. No need to give reasons. What Judge Bashier Vally has been saying and arguing very, I think, comprehensively and persuasively is that there is that right to review, and that the president himself and his counsel have conceded that, and they said that yes, there is that prerogative, provided it is rational. Yeah. And if something is rational, it is subject to legal review. And that's where Zuma is being pushed to offer his reasons, and that should not be a great favour. This is the leader elected by the majority party, elected by the electorate of South Africa. Why should South Africans have to go to these lengths to find out why? What were his reasons? Yeah. And we know that one of the points in his application for appeal is point that if these records exist, so the indication is that perhaps there are not these records apart from in his head. And when we get to this report, the security report, intelligence report, it is the ANC people, the NWC, Baleka Mbete, Cyril Ramaphosa, Gwede Mantashe, who have been referring to this report. So I believe it's trying to play tricks, passing the ball around and seeing if he can win time. Yeah. That's the way the president does legal cases. Okay. Some of these extensions and appeals and postponements have been coming along ever since 2009 when he assumed power.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we've got so many different words that have come from the ANC. Zizi Kodwa has been very outspoken about this, saying that it is not only judicial overreach, but it undermines the judiciary itself. What does the judgment mean for the separation of powers, particularly between the judiciary and the executive?
Yes. You know, of course, South Africa doesn't have absolute separation of powers. Just look at the overlap between the executive and the legislative, for example. But the question of overreach, that has been the retort of those people who have been strongly defending the president. But if one looks at it carefully, the task of the judiciary is to check that the Constitution is being upheld. There has been a big tendency to shout overreach, overreach each time the legislature, the legislative branch, and the courts, judiciary move in to say, have the rules been upheld? And there have been many good indications from learned friends and previous high constitutional experts who have showed that the Constitutional Court doesn't tell us exactly what content to put into decisions, doesn't even try to tell the legislature or parliament what content to put in it, but they are checking continuously, have the rules of the Constitution been upheld? Because South Africa is a constitutional state. Yeah. It's one of the founding provisions of the Constitution. Yeah. And it is not just majoritarianism. The majority party, due to that vote, hasn't got the ultimate and the final say. The Constitution has.
Yeah. Let's just talk about, and very quickly, because when we were given those reasons as to why the cabinet reshuffle took place and our former finance minister was sacked. You know, there was that talk about and statements as to there were allegations that this report indicated that the minister was abroad to mobilize efforts and mobilize the markets against the country, which undermines the security of the country. You know, surely this evidence, if he does have it, should be presented to the court. Surely this is something that needs to be made public.
Absolutely. You know, and we've even seen in the media full publication, verbatim statum of that report. It was possibly something that the president had received by SMS or something like that, and trying to out the sources that might have leaked it to the media now by insisting on this report being made available by the DA. But the president was all over the show with those reasons, and that was at that point probably when he recalled Pravin Gordhan and Mcebisi Jonas from their overseas roadshow. But he was all over the show. It was young blood, it was gender, it was new energy, expertise. He was all over the show in his reasons, and that is quite a political spectacle. It will probably come out even worse than he's looking at the moment, should he provide a list, to try to provide the detailed list of those reasons that he's been giving. Because it is a joke, unfortunately, and I say that very sadly, because we know the president is trying to avoid it, and isn't that a basis for democratic practice? A president shouldn't even be asked to provide the reasons for that. It should be forthcoming, gladly presented.
There were a couple of media reports previously saying that other people had seen the so-called intelligence report as well. Why would the president believe that the DA has this report now? What would lead to this, that now he's saying they must release it? Because
in their legal submissions they had made reference to that. And the president now pretends it does not exist.
But he quoted it, and that's the reality. He was the one that said it exists. Other people have so-called seen this one. Is there a chance that through buying this time that a list could be compiled quickly in this time?
Well, there is. I think they are working very hard in making some rational reasoning and pulling together records, if these records exist. It's probably in the president's head. And the political rationale, we've seen many arguments saying, but it's political. He needn't justify it any further. He can just say it's political. But I think that misses the point, that political need not be irrational. One can go systematically and one needs all those reasons, and those reasons should have been there. It's probably a case that they are not there, that the president acted impromptu on the basis of a very poor, misjudged, if it can be called an intelligence report at all, that he acted on the basis of that, and it would be very embarrassing to reveal that.
All right, so the DA is studying this, and they will then, of course, make their next move. So we wait to hear from them. Thank you so much for being with us. Professor Susan Booysen, political analyst at the University of the Witwatersrand. Time now for your sports news. Here's Valem.